I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing, so cold. Behold, frostbite, they feeling. I could take
Clutch Sports Talk. Let's go. Good evening, everyone. Hope you guys are doing all right, and welcome to the very first edition of NFL After Dark with me, Clutch Sports Talk, aka Ryan Flowers, in the house. Now, this was an impromptu show. I literally was not thinking about doing this at all, period. But start sitting around, people hitting me up like, hey, are you going to be on to talk about the week's events, or actually the day's events? And I said I hadn't planned on it, but I said, what the heck, might as well throw something together real quick. So I created this show, NFL After Dark. For those who do know me, to the early Clutch Sports Talk people, I did used to do a show called NFL Primetime. So this is not out of the realm for me. But I said, you know what, let me try to resurrect this and see what happens. So tonight's show, man, we're basically going to recap all the games for today. And then I got some headlines that you guys can see on your screen right there. We're going to be talking about the Dallas Cowboys, their win against the Washington Commanders. Cooper Rush looked pretty solid in his start today. We're also going to talk about the Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. They improved to 4-0. They defeat their ex-coach, Doug Peterson, in some pretty sloppy conditions today. And then also Denver Broncos fall to the Las Vegas Raiders. And Nathaniel Hackett just looks like he can't hack it. He just can't. So make sure you guys follow and like, share the content below. And also this show is brought to you by The Grid, the leaders in sports entertainment, media, and content. So without further ado, man, let's get straight into it. So today we had some pretty solid games today in the morning half. I won some money. Thank God for the Cardinals. Shout out to my boy DJ for the plus 1.5. All those guys, all those games that I bet plus 1.5 on, I actually won. I won on. So if he's listening, man, make sure you shout me out in the chat right now. So, but overall, pretty solid day. Can't complain really. Some surprises, which we'll get into. The Green Bay New England game. That was very interesting, and a letdown. The Baltimore Ravens. What happened there? You know, they were pretty much cruising 20-3 for the most part of the game, and ended up losing to the Buffalo Bills in dramatic fashion. Well, I won't say dramatic fashion, but literally some mistakes being made at the end. Carolina Panthers, pretty lackluster performance at home against the Arizona Cardinals, who were pretty much reeling, but they get the job done anyhow. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up the screens. My screen here, and let you guys kind of fill you in on what happened today for if you weren't watching any of the game. So Cleveland Browns entered the game on the road against Atlanta Falcons this afternoon or this morning, and they fell. I actually picked the Falcons to win the game. I knew it was going to be close, and literally it was a close game. That's the style of games that the Falcons choose to play. They they always find a way to, I don't know what you call it, but like it just seems like to me, they just have a propensity of playing in close games, and they either lose them or they win them. But today, they actually ended up winning the game. Their defense came up with an interception at the end of the game, which pretty much sealed the deal for the Cleveland Browns. Now, but what can I say? The Falcons are I believe they're 2-2 now. Shout out to them for doing their thing, and they got on that winning side. All right. Washington Commanders, this is an early start for the Cowboys today. Listen, the Cowboys defense is carrying them. Now, this game, early and often, the Cowboys were moving the ball up the field, getting first downs, converting. They were stopping the Washington Commanders. I believe in the first 6 to 7 series, the Washington Commanders had 4 or 5 punts, a touchdown, and interception, right? And at one point, the Commanders actually took the lead, 7-6, and then pretty much after that, it was pretty much all the Cowboys. The Cowboys actually lead the league now in most sacks. That's a defense, man. Trevon Diggs gets his second pick of the year. He pretty much was a receiver on that particular play that Carson Wentz just stood up. And if you watch Carson Wentz enough, you know for a fact that he's going to give you an interception at some point. That's his game. That's what he is. He still thinks he's Carson Wentz from the year they won the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, Carson, you are not. And so the Washington Commanders fall now to 1-3. Their only win being the Jacksonville Jaguars opening day. And it doesn't really look that good. And it's sad because the Commanders actually have some talent on the offensive side of the ball, but they just don't have it. I forgot, before the Cleveland Browns and the Falcons game, there was a game over in London. Across the pond, the Minnesota Vikings ended up winning that game on a last-second field goal by their kicker, Joseph. But then Will Lutz had a chance to tie the game and send it into overtime. It hit the bar, or one of the uprights, and bounced over, and it just didn't fall for the Saints' way, and they fall 28-25. Justin Jefferson went off for 10 receptions, 147 yards. Kirk Cousins, not bad, no interceptions, but looked pretty decently. So not much more I can say about that game. I think next week it's the Giants in Green Bay in England somewhere. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. All right, getting back on track here, we got the Seattle Seahawks. They come in and beat the Detroit Lions. Now, I had the Lions winning this game, I thought, because they were at home. They play hard. I know their defense is terrible. They ended up giving up 48 points to the Seattle Seahawks. 48 points. This was a wild game. You got guys from Seattle Seahawks taking carts to go use the restroom, probably to go do number 2. Late fumbles. It wasn't a fumble. God knows what happened. But now the Detroit Lions fall to 1-3. They're playing hard. They just can't finish. And that's something that this team is going to have to learn how to do at some point. But Seattle comes into the Motor City and gets that win. Rashard Penny looked pretty good, 151 yards for 17 carries and 2 touchdowns. Pretty legit. Jared Goff threw for 378 on 39 attempts and 4 tuds. So, I mean, look, they can score. I don't think that's the problem. It's their defense they got to figure out. And Aaron Glenn is going to have to figure something out because they're ranked one of the lowest defenses in all of the National Football League. All right. Tennessee Titans did exactly what I thought they would do. They win a close division game against the Indianapolis Colts. Something is not right with the Colts. I just don't know what it is. Their defense isn't as good as it once was about a year, or even a year ago, almost 2 years ago. Derrick Henry ran roughshod pretty much over these guys. He ran for 114, 1 touchdowns, 22 attempts. I mean, listen, I think the Colts are still missing a number 1 wide receiver. I like Michael Pittman Jr., but to me, he's just not that guy, not explosive enough. Matt Ryan, 356, 2 touchdowns. It just wasn't enough in a come-from-behind effort. They just fall short, and now the Tennessee Titans improved to 2-1, and the Colts are 1-2-1. And right now, I think the Jags are still atop of the AFC South. All right, moving on. Chicago Bears into the Meadowlands to take on the New York Giants. This one ended kind of crazy. It was like the last-second play. It was basically guys just playing backyard football, but the Bears end up falling to the Giants. Now, here's a funny stat. I saw that Daniel Jones only completed like 8 passes or 13 passes for 77 yards, but Saquon Barkley was the catalyst in this particular game. He rushed 31 times for 146 yards, no touchdowns. And Justin Fields, again, the Bears are not a good team. The Giants aren't a great team. This game was really funny because it was the battle of 2 underwhelming 2-1 teams. Now, the Giants are 3-1, but let's be real. No one's really that afraid of the Giants. Okay, they're just not. Now, the Bears are 2-1. This was a close game, I guess, towards the end, but really the Giants proved to be the victors in the end, and they get the win at home. And then they're going to hop on a plane and cross the Atlantic and play and match up with the Packers next week in England somewhere. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Philadelphia Eagles. This one, the Jags got up on them quick. I believe they were up 14-0, but then somehow, some way, the Eagles fight back, and they end up winning the game 29-21. Jalen Hurts threw for a pedestrian 204, one interception, and I believe a rushing touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. Miles Sanders, 2 touchdowns, 134 yards on 27 carries. A.J. Brown, the leading receiver, with 5 receptions and 95 yards. In a game where weather played a factor, a lot of slippage. There was a point in the game where Jacksonville had a chance. They had gotten a turnover in the red zone, and then literally the next play, Trevor Lawrence fumbles the ball somehow, and the Eagles get the ball and basically seals the game right there. So they ruined the homecoming for Doug Peterson to try to get back at his former team that he won a Super Bowl with in 2017. But we'll spend a little bit more about the Eagles here in just a moment. The New York Jets, Jets, Jets. Now, they looked left for dead at one point. Finally, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Finally, they made the move, but Kenny Pickett didn't really look that great either. He threw 3 interceptions. Now, one of them at the end was kind of like a toss-up, but it is what it is. Give him more time. I don't think that wasn't a fair chance for him. I mean, he's got thrown into a game in which they were trailing. They came back. They took the lead. And then the Jets, in a great job by Zach Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson did his thing in that under 2 minute drive where they needed to get that touchdown to go up and win that game. And it was a tough game. It was a tough game. I knew it was going to be a tough game because both teams aren't really playing that great. But I felt Zach Wilson would have been the better quarterback, and really he was. He had 252 yards on 36 attempts and 1 touchdown. And then the Steelers just couldn't get it going, which I think they're going to figure it out. They had the leading rusher with Najee Harris. He rushed for 74 yards. George Pickens, 102 yards on 6 receptions. They just couldn't get it in the end zone. And I think Kenny Pickett's going to have to go back, watch some film, and make sure that he is getting it to those talented wide receivers that he has here in Pittsburgh. So I'm not quite. I know the Steelers now are 1-3. I had them picked to win the AFC North. Now they still have a chance because the Ravens fell, obviously, today. So we'll talk about them next. But there's still a chance if they can get the quarterback play right. Now TJ Watt is still out. Minkah Fitzpatrick left the game late in the game. Not sure on his status, but we'll have to see what happens with them. But the Jets, great come from behind victory. This is their second one in 3 weeks on the road, mind you. Hopefully they don't have another letdown, but the Jets, they get the win on the road. All right, surprising one, but not surprising, I guess. The Buffalo Bills basically spot the Baltimore Ravens, 20 points, and they end up winning 23-20. Now, Lamar Jackson wasn't his best outing, per se. There was an opportunity for the Ravens to kick a field goal to go up 23-20 themselves. On the goal line, Jim Harbaugh elects to go for it. And the play design, really, I don't know. I'm kind of questioning it. I hate when teams have their quarterbacks rolling to one side. When you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, you just have to... You just have to figure out a way to get him the ball and keep the ball in his hands. And unfortunately, it just didn't happen that way. They end up losing the game because Buffalo, they get the interception. So the ball gets taken out. They were like on the 1 or 2 yard line, if I'm not mistaken. They get the interception in the end zone. The ball gets taken out like it was a touchback. And then they march the length of the field. And perfect and great clock management by the Buffalo Bills in a gritty come from behind win. Now, this is twice now in 4 weeks the Ravens have gone up big on really good teams and end up folding in the end. Is this a precursor to what we're going to see from them in the future when they play potential playoff Super Bowl contending type teams? Buffalo Bills, they were down, as far as their defense is concerned. Josh Allen played a hell of a game for the most part. 213 yards, 1 touchdown. Lamar Jackson was the leading rusher for the Baltimore Ravens, which is really that's always the case, right? He is their offense. And today was one of those games where, that the defense was all over him. The defense was all over Lamar, and that's what good teams will do when you play him. Now, Lamar looks great against the Jets and all these other teams, but when it matters against good defending teams, can he perform? And the answer is it's 50-50 at this point, right? And it goes back to what I've always talked about with him, especially from this morning, is the fact that he does great in the regular season. He's a front runner in the regular season, but when it comes to postseason play, when the teams are a lot more difficult, then this is the kind of pedestrian type numbers you'll see from him. So if I'm the Ravens, in the end, you're going to have to end up paying him because who else do you got? I like Huntley. Is that his name? Huntley, Tyler Huntley, the kid from Utah. But is he Lamar Jackson? No, he's a good backup. Okay. So he's going to get his money somehow, some way. But I just don't believe in Lamar Jackson the way other people do. And I'm not saying he's not talented, but I've seen this before from other quarterbacks with that same similar skill set. So we'll see what happens with them. The Ravens are now 2-2, and really they should be undefeated. This game was theirs to be had, and they let it slip between the cracks. All right, moving on. San Diego Chargers go up big on the Texans and almost give it away in San Diego in LA Charger fashion. They hold off a late rally from the Texans. But listen, hey, the Texans found something. Dameon Pierce, the running back, I believe taken from Florida. He looking like Arian Foster back there. Davis Mills, not too shabby himself, but the real story here, Justin Herbert playing literally with nobody. Keenan Allen was out. They had some other receivers out. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, they do a pretty good job. Herbert threw for 340, 2 touchdowns with some hurt cartilage, whatever he's got going on. But again, the Texans, not a great football team, but they fight hard. But unfortunately, in the NFL, playing hard does not always equate to winning football games. But if they can get a right coach and maybe get another receiver in there, you got a running back now. And I think you got a decent quarterback. You might be all right in Houston in the next couple of years if they can get the right coach in place there. All right, Arizona Cardinals on the road in Carolina. I had the Carolina Panthers winning this game, but the Cardinals do what Cardinals do. They win a good one on the road. This is their second win on the road. Their only wins come from the road. Obviously, they come from behind win against Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. And then today, Carolina Panthers are a lackluster team. I watched that game for like a couple minutes, and I just was like, I can't get up for that team. They're boring to watch. There's nothing about Carolina Panther football that lets me want to keep watching, right? They got the whole keep pounding. Well, I don't want to keep watching because they have nobody on that team. This needs to be a total rebuild. Matt Rule's going to be gone. You need to trade Christian McCaffrey. You need to let go of DJ Moore. Let him go somewhere, right? You just need a complete overhaul on this team. They just don't have it. And Baker Mayfield probably is going to be out here in just the next couple of weeks when Sam Darnold gets off of IR because he literally didn't do anything too. Kyler Murray, pretty solid game. There's still some things about Kyler Murray I don't like. I can tell now he really doesn't watch film. He doesn't know what he's reading out there as far as defenses are concerned. He's just out there running around like Lamar Jackson playing backyard football. And in the end, when you play good teams, that does not work. He didn't do that against the Rams last week. Why? Because that's a good defense. Right? You have to prepare. And the Carolina Panthers, although they're a middle-of-the-road defensive team, they're not an elite team, and therefore he can get away with not reading coverages and missing plays and stuff like that. So I for whatever reason, I'm not a fan of the Carolina Panthers, and they just need to overhaul that whole team altogether. All right, head scratcher of the day: New England Patriots on the road, Green Bay Packers. They are down to their third quarterback. What's the kid's name? Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky. Came in and actually was in a game with Aaron Rodgers. Now, the Packers end up winning the game because they have Aaron Rodgers and they have a formidable running game. And this is the thing that the Packers have to get back to doing and be more consistent with it. You have Jones and you have Dillon. Run the freaking football. Control the line of scrimmage and run the football, and then the rest of it will open up. Lazard had 116 yards on 6 receptions. Aaron Rodgers, 251, 2 touchdowns, but they ran the football. Aaron Jones rushed for 110 yards. Now, the Patriots had their way on the offensive line as well, too. They were getting up and down the field, too. Now, Zappi didn't have to really do a lot. One thing I will say about the Patriots, although they're not the team that they once were, they're well coached, man. That defense kept them in that game. They had a pick 6 by Jack Jones. They can coach. They just don't have the talent. And that's part of Bill Belichick's fault. They don't draft very well, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now, with Mac Jones out, Brian Hoyer went into concussion protocol. And then you have Bailey Zappi now, who's probably going to be the starter next week because they're pretty sure Brian Hoyer is not going to play. And McCorkle Jones ain't coming through that door no time soon. And honestly, that might be all right because Zappi didn't look that bad for the most part, considering he's a 4th-round draft pick. He literally was just sitting there like Willie Beeman in any given Sunday. And next thing you know, he sees Hoyer goes down. He's like, oh, shoot. And then Bill Belichick probably pulls him over and say, hey, just pretend you're throwing the ball to your friend and just say, hey, run to the Buick, right? That's what Al Pacino says to Jamie Foxx. In any given Sunday. I'm pretty sure they had that type of conversation, or maybe not. But look, at the end, Packers hold on and get a good win. I won't say a good win, but a win that they needed to stay on pace with the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC North, which I still think the Packers still have a chance as long as they can run that football, because the Vikings, even though they won today, they got pushed around. That defense has regressed. They don't look as good as they once were, at least a year ago. So we'll see what happens with them. All right. Denver Broncos taking on the Las Vegas Raiders here in my city where I live, here in Las Vegas, and they lose. Now, the offense kind of was, I don't know what to say about the offense. They kind of got it moving. Russell Wilson tried to step it up a little bit. He threw for 2 touchdowns, 237 yards, but that defense literally just got dominated in the second half. Josh Jacobs ran roughshod over that team. Josh Jacobs had 28 carries for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Devontae Adams did his thing with 9 receptions over 100 yards. He was doing his thing out there. The Raiders' problem is not the offense, it's the defense, and that's secondary. Okay. Now they had a big play in the secondary by Amik Robertson, whatever you want to call him. He had the fumble that fell literally into his lap, and he ran it back for a touchdown, a scoop and score, essentially, right? But the Denver Broncos, they still look so discombobulated. I don't know what they're doing. My boy All Even podcast with Barry Grant, he says we miss Mac Daddy. Well, keep missing him, because I'm telling you what, Bailey Zappi might be the answer in New England. Who knows, right? But the Denver Broncos, and we'll talk about their coach here in just a minute, but they fall now to 2-2, and the Raiders finally get on the winning side of things, and they improve to 1-3. So good for the Raiders and their fans, because now the Raider fans are going to be in the streets saying, we're back, we're going to the Super Bowl. As Lee Coulter would say, not so fast, right? All right. The Sunday night game that just finished about 10, 15 minutes ago, Kansas City Chiefs got an offense. Okay, I don't care who you put back there. Literally, Patrick Mahomes was throwing to guys I did not know existed. I had to Google some of these guys' names. I did not know some of these guys. And I watch football, and I did not know half of these guys. Their offense is so creative, and they got the right quarterback to basically orchestrate what's happening back there. Right, this was a big win for the Chiefs, going on their own against arguably one of the better defenses, a defense that has not given up more than 17 or 18 points in a game or something crazy like that, or averaging, and they hang 41 on these dudes on the road. 41. Now, some of this stuff, they gave up 31, but some of this was like garbage, late time stuff. But the Chiefs are legit. Now, their defense is, their pass rush is good. That's never been the problem with the Chiefs. Their pass rush is good. It's their secondary. But if they're scoring 20-something more points a game, I don't know what their average is, but that average is going to get bumped up tonight after their performance. Tom Brady still had a pretty good night, but he threw 52 times. That's not good. A man over 40 should not be throwing 52 times a game. 3 touchdowns. Mike Evans did his thing. He was a leading receiver with 8 receptions, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But the Buccaneers are not right. They are not right, and I don't know what's going to happen. And they're probably going to end up winning this division because the Saints really just can't finish. But this is not a team, unless they figure out like they did the year they won the Super Bowl. They didn't start great, but I think this year might be the difference. So not quite sure. And obviously the Monday night game has not been played yet, so we won't even bother talking about that. So let's get back to business here. So let's start with my team, the Dallas Cowboys. Tonight, listen, this team, they're going to have to hang their hats on the defense. Cooper Rush looked pretty good today. Let me pull up his stats here. Let's see. He threw for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I like that. That's very conservative. Didn't do too much, but they're going to need to do some more. The offense has to get clicking more. If that defense is going to be stopping people early and often, the offense needs to come away with touchdowns and not field goals. Early in that game, the defense did a great job of limiting the Washington Commanders to punts, and actually really great field position. We had a pick here, a turnover here and there. We're getting field goals. You can't do that against the elite teams. That works against the Commanders. It'll work against the Giants. But next week, when you have a team like the Rams, who can score, now they have their own issues, but they get after it on offense. You're gonna have to get 6 points on the board, not these field goals. Now I'll take the points, but you got to get touchdowns, not field goals. Ezekiel Elliott only rushed for 19 carries on 49 yards. CeeDee Lamb, big today. Now Noah Brown went down, but Michael Gallup was there, so he got a touchdown in his return back. But I think he had 2 catches for 24 yards, which included a touchdown. Barry Grant says, Rush looks so poised, he's never looked back. I will say, Rush looks like he's in no rush. And honestly, right now, as big of a fan of Dak Prescott I am, I'm saying Cooper Rush probably needs to continue playing right now until Dak Prescott is completely healed. And it might be the scenario where, the roles are flipped, where Cooper Rush is basically Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott is Tony Romo. So we'll have to wait and see. There's still some things I do like about Dak, but Dak to me is not. He looks very frenetic back there sometimes, and like many people have said, he hasn't won big games yet. Cooper Rush is the first Dallas Cowboy quarterback to go 4-0 in 4 starts. I'm not saying we're going to the Super Bowl because the offense still needs to score more points. The defense is going to do all they can. And that game next week against the Rams is going to be close. Why? Because the defense is going to keep the Cowboys in the game, regardless of who the quarterback is. So I know Dak is chomping at the bit to get back because, like any other professional athlete, you don't want to be on the sideline. You want to be in the game. And I know Dak is a competitor, just like any other professional athlete. You got to have that dog in you. And of course, he doesn't want to see Cooper. Now, he's happy the Cowboys are winning because I know Dak is that kind of guy. But at the same note, he's probably like, hey, man, like, I don't want to quiet all this. Like, hey, like Cooper Rush for Dak Prescott. Like, I'm the guy. And right now, Cooper Rush is not doing a bad job. He's 4-0 as a starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Barry Grant says, I think Dak needs to learn how to be a more composed quarterback. He can learn from Rush. Yeah. I think sometimes Dak sees things or he doesn't see things. There was a couple plays that did like that touchdown to CeeDee Lamb I think CeeDee Lamb ran like a post. I think Dak would have missed that. He wouldn't even saw him. But Cooper Rush was calm back there. And the offensive line is not playing bad. I want to say the Cowboys at one point only had 2 penalties for 10 yards today. They might have another penalty tacked on, but for the most part, they played a pretty solid game in all phases, right? The defense was, of course, exceptional because that's what the defense does, right? Interceptions, sacks, forcing 3rd and longs, things of that nature. That's what you should do as a competitive defense, and that's what they do. So, look, as a big Dak Prescott fan, and trust me, I'm a Dak Prescott fan. Look, check this out. Look, this is my guy. I don't know if you guys can see this on the camera, right? But I found this at a gas station on the way to LA about a couple months ago. All right. It's called Eddie's World. It's a random gas station on the way to LA from Las Vegas. And I bought it. And it's weird because that's how you know we're America's team, bro. In somewhere in Yermo, California, not even Barstow, Yermo, California, there's a Dak Prescott figurine. That's America's team, man. Yermo, California. Look it up. It's a podunk town. There's like 2 people there in the city. And I found that at a gas station. So I'm still a Dak Prescott fan, but there's some things that concern me about him, especially going into his 7th year that he hasn't picked up on yet. So right now, no need to rush. Cooper Rush needs to stay in play for Dallas Cowboys until further notice, until Dak is completely healed, and then we'll go from there. And this is a pivotal game because let's just say Dak doesn't play and the Cowboys win that game on the road. Then we really got a controversy brewing, for real. And I'm going to be here for that. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. All right, moving on to staying in the NFC East. Fly, Eagles, fly. This team, as much as I hate them, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Now they haven't really played much of competition as of late. Their best win is the Minnesota Vikings. But then again, a lot of teams that are 3-1 or whatever the case may be haven't probably played a lot of great competition as of yet. I mean, the Cowboys are 3-1 and are what? We've beaten the Bengals, which might be a good win, right? The Giants, and then today the Washington Commanders. So their next true test will be the Rams next week. Now the Eagles are doing some things on offense, and I might have to do a little film study on them because of how dynamic their offense is, especially with them running the ball, the Jalen Hurts aspect, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith being one of the 2 best tandem wide receivers in all of football. And I'm looking at their schedule. They're at the Cardinals next week, which has always been traditionally a tough place for them to play. And then they got the Cowboys on the Sunday night on October 16th at home in Philadelphia. So that'll be a big game. But listen, Nick Sirianni, I was very, very leery about him getting that job. He sounded like an idiot when he first got it, him and Dan Campbell together. But it's looking like it's paying off right now. 4-0 start, and like I said, the offense is clicking. Defensively, they're okay. They're so. I think you can get after them just a little bit. That defensive line isn't what it once was before. But overall, I think the Eagles, I'm not saying they're going to be Super Bowl contenders per se, but they are a team that's worth watching right now because they're clicking on all cylinders. And sometimes you think teams that start off this fast, they may peak because it's still early in the season, right? I start really looking at contenders, like seriously, towards the end of November, early December, because that's when you're getting in ready for playoff football, and it's still early. And I'm just looking at their stats right now from a defensive standpoint. Let's see here. Where is it at? We want team stats. Oh, here we go. Team stats. I got a new setup. I'm loving it because I got 2 monitors now, so I can do more things. I mean, they're giving up about 28 points a game. That's a lot. That's a lot. Their defense. First downs, they've given up 98 first downs. Third down, third down efficiency, 43%. 43%. So, there's still some room for improvement there, but their offense is like tops in most of the categories in the league. So, it's going to be a good matchup. If the Cowboys can somehow win next week, and then the Eagles should win, they should go on the road and beat the Cardinals, but you just never know. And then that October 16th matchup in Lincoln Financial should be a good one, because it's literally going to be for the NFC East. Now, I still had the Eagles winning the NFC East before any of this happened. I thought they would be good, but I think they would be this good this early, right? But we'll have to wait and see on the Philadelphia Eagles at this point. All right. Last thing before I get out of here this evening, man, listen. Denver Broncos, they got a loss today, but one thing about the Broncos, they look terrible. And Nathaniel Hackett has no clue what he's doing. And it came up in my show this morning about him basically he might get a second gig after this when it's all said and done. I would expect him to be fired. If the Broncos don't get it going offensively and just look better overall, their defense does not look good anymore the way it once was, there's going to be a problem. They should have lost last week to the Niners, right? But they squeaked that one out. Russell Wilson had to do his thing, and they lost today. And they lost to Seattle first week. Here's the thing about the NFL that is very puzzling, because guys like him and, Anthony Lynn came up, the former LA Chargers coach. Now, I believe I forgot where he's at now. I don't know if he's in Detroit. I don't know where he's at, Anthony Lynn. Or maybe he's not. I think he was the offensive coordinator for them last year. He got fired. He got replaced. But Anthony Lynn did a pretty solid job for a couple of years in LA. They just couldn't get the job done. And now will Brandon Staley get the same opportunities that Anthony Lynn didn't get, right? He might get a mulligan, right? But back to Nathaniel Hackett. After doing a little bit more research on him, he's always had pretty good, solid situations. So I don't know if he's a great coach. He might be a good interpersonal connector type person, because obviously he had a great relationship with Aaron Rodgers. But I believe Matt LaFleur was calling the offensive plays in Green Bay. And Hackett was kind of like a middleman of some sorts, right? He maybe had some type of influence, but right now he is looking overwhelmed. He already had to hire a consultant for in-game decisioning. Bro, you're the head coach. Why the hell do you need that so quick already? And I get it. Me watching from my couch at home is different than you actually being in the stadium on the field with people looking to you for direction. And that's one thing. If I'm a GM or an owner, I'm looking for an NFL head coach. That's fine. You got to know your X's and O's. I'm not saying you cannot not know anything, but there are other traits that I need to look for. How do you handle adversity? How do you handle conflict? How can you adapt during a game? And none of these things are happening. And the Denver Broncos, again, they got outplayed in the second half, man. The Raiders just dominated them. They still can't get it going offensively with all these weapons. So my best guess is that if it doesn't pan out for them, they don't right this ship, he's done. He's done, and I don't think he'll get a job. And I know some people might disagree with me, but I think he has shown he hasn't had any success so far, and he's shown little. Actually, he hasn't shown anything. So I think his cachet, he doesn't have any cachet. So a guy like him probably will never get a head coaching job again. If he does, he's going to have to wait a little bit, kind of like what McDaniels has done, until you coach Denver, didn't work out, got fired, went back to New England, kind of chilled out there, and he kind of worked his way up into what he is now. Now he's 1-3, but I'll give him credit. He paid his dues. He had an opportunity to get another head coaching job, but he quit via fax. But he learned a lot by that. I believe he was like only 33, 34 at the time. So a younger coach, right? So, but Nathaniel Hackett probably will not get another coaching opportunity, and he shouldn't. Same thing like Brandon Staley, these guys, Everyone thinks these guys are so smart and they're wizards and all that. But man, listen, it takes more than just drawing up a nice quick little play on your little, Microsoft Surface. You look at play callers like Andy Reid, who's been doing this successfully throughout different periods of his coaching career. Look at those Philadelphia Eagles offenses. They were tremendous, man. He helped Donovan McNabb be who Donovan McNabb is. He helped turn around Michael Vick, right? He made Alex Smith look pretty much decent, right? And now look what he's doing with Patrick Mahomes. Those are types of coaches that get it. They're very good in situational stuff. But Nathaniel Hackett, even though he comes from a great coaching pedigree with his dad, who coached in the NFL, he coached in college. I mean, look at the picture I have. He's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. And he shouldn't get another job, depending on what happens and what transpires the rest of the season. Now let me look at their schedule real quick. I don't know who they got going next, but that AFC West is not a joke, man. And I knew the Raiders were going to win today. They're at home. The Raiders can score. They just couldn't stop anybody, and they simply just outlasted the Denver Broncos in this particular matchup. And the Broncos, they have. Oh, they got Colts Thursday Night Football at home. So maybe they might, but the Colts can score a little bit. It's not the San Francisco 49ers. So that'll be an interesting game because both teams are kind of like in flux. Now, if the Broncos lose that game, that seat gets really, really hot for Nathaniel Hackett. And I don't think he should get another coaching job if this thing falls apart for him at the end of the day. And Anthony Lynn, I don't know. I'm using him as an example because his name came up earlier on in my show this morning. Is he a great head coach? He's all right. He still had some things about him, but I think the Chargers just cursed. You look at Todd Bowles right now, what's going to happen with him, and I'm bringing this up because black coaches don't get a long leash. You look in college, look what happened. Look what happened to Herm Edwards. They couldn't even fire him in the locker room. They caught him on the field, right? Carl Durrell started 0-5 in Colorado. He's gone, right? He's probably done. So there's definitely some stuff going on where certain guys aren't getting certain jobs again. Look at Vance Joseph. He didn't get another head coaching job after he got fired by the Denver Broncos. So, but look, my thing is, if you're the guy, you're the guy. But we'll have to wait and see. I think that a lot of these guys, these coordinators, because they come from these football trees or coaching trees, they get blessed and be like, oh, this guy's a guru. Slow down on some of this stuff, man, because some of these guys, they literally have all the talent, they had all the resources, and when they're asked to do it themselves, to recreate what they once had wherever their former job was, it doesn't work out for them. And I think Nathaniel Hackett, guys like Matt LaFleur, all those kind of guys, those are the guys that really you have to be on the lookout for, because they're the ones that they just don't have it. They just don't have it. And it is unfair that guys like Anthony Lynn did not get an opportunity, or maybe he didn't want to be a head coach anymore. I don't know. But if that's the case, that's a shame, because I still thought he could have provided a little bit of something to an organization. But this day and age, you got to win now. You got to win now. There's no time to rebuild and wait a whole year, because teams are winning now. You look at the Eagles, they made the playoffs, didn't have a great record, but they made it, right? They got bounced by the Tampa Bay, and now look at them. They're 4-0. They're 4-0. So this league is all about from being one of the worst teams to turning around the next season and being one of the best teams. So we'll have to see what happens with that situation for the Denver Broncos moving forward. All right. Whew. Well, that's all I got, man. Hey, hope you guys enjoyed the show. Listen, I want to keep doing this every Sunday. So we got Sunday morning, NFL Sunday morning, and then we got NFL After Dark with me after Sunday Night Football. So make sure you guys tap in, join the show, man. Hey, it's been a pleasure as usual. This is NFL After Dark with me, Ryan Flowers, a.k.a. Clutch Sports Talk. Like I always say, guys, never settle till the work is done. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Peace.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me